I thank you for the privilege of addressing this annual end-of-year conference of the Court of Appeal. To be called upon by your lordships to deliver this keynote address is a privilege never to be forgotten. It is from you judges that we draw our inspiration. Your pronouncements are law. I therefore cherish this privilege which enables me, in however small a way, to offer you words of consolation at a time when the judiciary is grossly misunderstood and maligned by those who do not know you well enough. I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your sacrifices. Forgive our ingratitude. Thank you. Forgive us when we make conditional our duty of gratitude to you. As far as I am concerned, our duty of gratitude to the judiciary is unqualified. You served the nation at a difficult time. The nation has never needed your services more than it does now. And yet, some of us have never been more ungrateful to you than we are now. It is a time such as this that our Lord Jesus Christ had in mind when he enjoined men and women, such as yourselves, not to despair of doing good. As a body, you have every reason to be proud of yourselves. Our judges are the equals, even the superiors of the judges of other nations. Had it not been for the courage and competence of our judges, had it not been for their dedication and sacrifices, this nation would long since have perished. For your services to the nation, many of you have nothing to show but your poverty. Do as Socrates did. Offer your poverty as the proof of your patriotism. You judges pay a high price for the work that you do. You sacrifice self. You sacrifice family. You sacrifice friends. All your time and life is taken up with our anxieties and sorrows. You think about our evils. You read about our evils. You write about them. You adjudicate over them. Unless you are very fortunate indeed, this preoccupation with our anxieties and sorrows slowly and imperceptibly hardens you, dehumanizes you, and diminishes you. Concerning the effect of your work on you, the great Russian writer Anton Chekhov said, I'm not going to worry about quoting him. Let me go on, I have only a few minutes. Expressing precisely the same views, Marcus Tullius Cicero, reputed to be one of the greatest lawyers in history, in the course of his defense of Sextus Roscius of Ameria, said, let me quote him, it's rather brief. By familiarizing us with evil in all its forms, it has stifled the sentiments of pity in the hearts of a hitherto merciful people. For when hour by hour we never cease seeing or hearing about some appalling deed, the constant repetition of horrors drains even the gentlest natures of every feeling of humanity. And so, it is unfortunate that instead of taking steps to minimize the negative impact of the pressures that we put on you, some of us have made a hobby of condemning you judges. You are said to be immune from prosecution, but your immunity has been taken away by the social media. The social media is the platform for attacking judges now. Allegations are first made in the social media to the world at large before complainants think fit, if at all, to refer matters to the National Judicial Council. The public and the press pass judgment on these allegations, and all that the complainants appear to require from the National Judicial Council is to rubber stamp those conclusions and punish the judges. Even when a complaint against the judge is dismissed as frivolous, the judge stands scandalized and distressed. I'm happy that the CJN is here. And let me say that the National Judicial Council is not a body for prosecuting judges. It should be a body for defending judges. And some of the frivolous applications that judges are called upon to defend. Why? There should be a mechanism for dismissing frivolous applications before they see the light of day. The judiciary needs all the support and encouragement we can give her. As I said before, our duty in that regard is unqualified. This is no time to proclaim the weaknesses of the judiciary. Whatever others may say of the judiciary, it is our duty to defend her and to protect her. Our respect for the judiciary should in no way be undermined by the mistakes that some judges have made or are still making. Let others feel free to scandalize the judiciary. Our duty is to exalt her. Our judiciary ought not to be treated as that stone that the builders rejected, but afterwards put it in its proper place. She is not just one of the arms of government, she is the preeminent one. And I'm happy to make this speech in the presence of our Attorney General, Lateef Fagbemi, a courageous, intelligent, and dedicated person. You spent all your life in this profession, and so you know the judiciary very well. Become the ally of the National Judicial Council to protect the judges. For over 30 years, the military maintained law and order using their own machinery. They ousted the jurisdiction of the courts whenever they found it expedient to do so. As a result, the institutions for the maintenance of law and order and the dispensation of justice were neglected. Today, both the police and the judiciary are struggling to recover from the effects of many years of neglect. Some progress has been made in our attempts at rehabilitating these institutions, but it will take some time before they recover fully or substantially. While they are struggling to do so, it is our duty to be sympathetic in our judgment of them and not to continue to heap temptations on them or disparage them, as some of us have been doing for a long time now. It is we who tempt the judges. It is we who blame them when some of them succumb. The judiciary is the offspring of the society, and no one should be surprised if it happens to resemble its parents. We are all witnesses to the dominant role played by money in our politics. Wealth has been used and continues to be used to acquire power, and after that, to acquire more wealth, and with it, to corrupt whatever is susceptible to being corrupted. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to address the police. At that time, the police were being disparaged, just as you judges are being disparaged now. And I said to them, if we are going to bring our policemen from heaven, we will have to bring our legislators from there too. We will have to bring our ministers from there. Our governors must come from heaven. We are not just going to bring judges from heaven. Does it make sense? If the Lord is going to give us judges from heaven, let him also give us legislators from there. Let him give us ministers from there. Even though we have a minister from heaven here, my own dear brother Wike, clap for him. The judiciary is founded on the premise that the cases over which judges will be called upon to adjudicate will be limited. If that limit is exceeded, the judges cannot cope. However competent or efficient or determined they may be, the nation must control itself. We must do something to limit crime. There is little that the judiciary can do to help the nation if the government does not strive to create equal opportunities for all. There is little that the judiciary can do to help the nation if the government itself is perceived as corrupt. What can the judiciary do if merit does not count? If the government is founded on patronage, what can the judiciary do if all the parties go into the elections determined to manipulate it? My brother Fagbemi, I'm not talking about your government. I was in government in 1999. And I can tell you that this is how the nation has been. By the time you came into power, the situation had become utterly complicated. The nation moved from one extreme of dictatorship in 1999 to the other extreme of liberalism, where we think that politics is a game without rules. We think that good and evil are equal. The boundaries of the states are rigid. You cannot work in a state unless you come from there. And that is the greatest problem of this nation, the fact that labor is not mobile. What can the judiciary do? I wish you judges had the power to legislate and remove boundaries. So that if I want to go and work in Zamfara, I can go there. As long as the boundaries of the states are rigid, your work will be excessive. You can't cope. This problem started in 1967 or 68 with the creation of states. We went from 4 regions to 36 states, and each time we multiplied the manpower needs of the nation, we met the needs that arose by appointing unqualified people. And that's how the nation fell. And you blame that on the judges? It is not correct. You judges are in no position. Have I done my 20 minutes? No, if I have, tell me. Have I? Yes, 3 more minutes. Now, in those 3 minutes, let me say this. The Cilicians, they lived in the mountains. There was nothing wrong with living in the mountains, but that's where they lived. The Romans were their enemies. The Romans were uneducated people. They could read and write. They wrote their own history. But the Cilicians never wrote their history. So the Romans, who were enemies of the Cilicians, wrote the history of the Cilicians and described them as barbarians. whereas they were not. And the Cilicians have gone down in history as barbarians. You judges, you are not writing your history. Your enemies are writing your history and giving you bad names, and unless you're very careful, you will go down in history with those bad names. So my appeal to you, the CJN, fortunately you are here, begin to write your history. They have called you bad names enough. Unfortunately, you can't speak. So let the National Judicial Council become a body for speaking for the judges. You will remember this. Don't be like the Cilicians. Don't let your enemies write your history. Write it yourself. I have put a little here about the times in which you live. Let me just take 2 minutes and say a word about that. The times in which you live, so that you don't go on blaming yourself and blaming everything on yourself. Bear in mind that you live and work in an age when corruption has permeated every department of the nation. Dictatorship would never have taken root in our country if corruption had not first permeated every department of it. That corruption can by no means be blamed on the judges, even though an insignificant number of judges have left themselves to be implicated in it. You live and work as judges at a time when nothing is predictable, a time when patriotism is at a low ebb, and the nation is stigmatized and as an artificial creation. We have a total misconception of democracy as the right to do as we please, without regard for the rights of others. Politics is perceived as a game of deception. The end justifies the means. We proceed on the false assumption that politics without force or without fraud cannot produce results. We aim at being strong in numbers without being strong in spirit and in truth. What can judges do in such a situation? We strive to fight falsehood, with the result that in the end, it is falsehood that is triumphing. Life is no longer sacred. We have reached that point at which Babylon was when bricks were worth more than life. It is reported that it took 1 year to carry bricks from the bottom of the tower to the top, the Tower of Babel. And when those bricks fell, the Babylonians wept. But when the builders fell and died, it meant nothing. That's where we are in this country, where power and wealth is everything and life is nothing. You blame that on the judges? No. You live and work in an age when the other arms of government do not respect the limits set to their authority. Fagbemi, I'm not talking about your government. I'm talking about what has been happening from the time when I was Attorney General. I can tell you that. So when I say these things, please, the nation is divided. Nothing has aided and facilitated the downfall of the nation more than our disunity. God has called us to be one, to live in peace and harmony, yet we are divided, state from state, tribe from tribe, faith from faith, the rich from the poor. What can the judiciary do to help a divided nation? I have already made the point, but it bears repetition. It ought not to be the case that indigents of one state, however competent or patriotic, cannot find employment in the public services of other states. My father is dead. May his soul rest in peace. I thank God that he gave me the name that he gave me. I have an Igbo name, Kanu, and I'm very proud of it. I'm not an Igbo person, but I have that name, Kanu. But if I were to go to Igbo land now to seek employment, they will say you are not an Igbo man. Whereas I am an Igbo man by name. So we must unite the nation. Let me leave it at that and thank you. I am happy that the minister of the FCT is here, my own dear brother. Nobody loves me more than he has loved me, and he has demonstrated it practically. Brother Wike, you are the minister of this FCT, and this FCT is the symbol of our unity. And I am happy that a decisive, forthright, courageous, and determined man like you is minister of this FCT to come up with policies and programs that will bind the nation together. I have always said, and it is true, that the essence of the presidential system, investing all power in one person, is to ensure that that power so vested will be used to bind the nation together. So, Brother Fagbemi, Minister Wike, the Lord bless you. The Lord has blessed you already, but he will bless you 1,000 times even more as you engage in policies and programs that give the nation hope. And you, judges, I pray the same prayer for you. The Lord has blessed you. There can be no greater blessing than to be president of the Court of Appeal or a justice of the Court of Appeal. It is the Lord that you serve. And we are told, St. Paul said, whether you are a servant or a slave, it is the Lord that you serve. The Lord will pay. If he does not pay you in gold, he will pay you in silver. And if he doesn't pay you in silver, he will pay you in diamond. To be a justice of the Court of Appeal is to be paid in gold, in silver, and in diamond all at once. May God bless you all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chief Kanu Agabi, SYN, former Honorable Attorney General of the Federation.